and welcome to Mental Health and Motivational Mondays. This is your small dose motivator, Tam Talk, here to bring you a small dose of motivation to get your week started. So on today's episode, you may have noticed there isn't an intro song or beat. And that was on purpose because on today's episode, I want to talk about being disciplined or being spontaneous. And so I'm going to title this the Spontaneous Disciplinarian, right? So you may say, what exactly is a spontaneous disciplinarian? Here's what I found for me. And there may be others who are like me, who have the same thought process like me. When I want to get something done, there are things that will require me to write it down or step by step. And then there are things that I just do it, right? And so what I have found when I just do things, though, that's where my authenticity or my originality actually flows through. And it may not be perfect, right? It may not be perfect in my eyes, like it's not perfectly structured, it's not perfectly stated, it's not perfectly whatever it is that is supposed to be perfect. But honestly, that content is the best content in comparison to those things that I've actually took the time to plan. And so it also occurred to me, who's to say that I'm not planning? Just because an outsider doesn't see you planning, that doesn't mean that you haven't planned. Just because an outsider didn't see you write it down on a to-do list doesn't necessarily mean you don't have a to-do list. I know there are certain things that, yes, I must write it down because it requires a step-by-step process. Like when I'm building course content, right? I want to make sure that it flows appropriately, that I'm incorporating all of the information that is necessary for those who will be receiving that content. On the other hand, such as this podcast episode, when the mood hits me, when the thought hits me, and I have all the tools and the resources available, I would say even the thought process, I'm just going to record it, right? So sometimes life requires spontaneity, right? Sometimes life requires discipline. Sometimes life requires spontaneity. Sometimes life requires discipline. So when you're spontaneity, you're in it, you're in that moment, it reduces fear. You just go ahead and go forth with it and you do it. Let the pieces fall where they may. If they fall, great. If they fall, bad. But then when it falls bad, you're able to go in to correct those pieces that did not fall well, right? And then, of course, like I said, then you have those moments where it does require you to have some discipline. It does require you to write out or to spell out the steps that are needed to that you would need to take to bring that content or to deliver excellent content. And so my message to you is to go through your goals, your life, your goals, whether personal or career-wise, professional goals, and see what items may require some spontaneity, and then which items require discipline. Because sometimes we miss out because we are procrastinating, because we fear that we are not perfect or that our content or whatever it is that we need to reach a goal is not perfect. And so that again, that introduces procrastination into our lives, and then we'll sit on it and we'll start to develop all sorts of excuses as to why we can't get anything done. And because it doesn't look perfect, and then we're looking at someone else's content or someone else's journey on how they reach their goal, and then we start to compare, oh, I'm not there, so now I have to go back and get to that point of where that individual is in order to do or to reach my goal. And we often forget that we are different individuals. We are different. We are set apart. How I do things may be totally different on how you do things. And sometimes we may be doing the same thing, but how we approach that same thing is what sets us apart, right? I'm going to use the example of coding. So coding, those of you who know me and those of you who follow me know that I am a coding entrepreneur. I have years of experience as a coder. And so, and trust me, the industry is full of coders. However, how I do things, or my approach to how I code is different from, say, my colleagues, right? They have their approach and their perspective, and I have my approach and my perspective. But here's the thing where we have to be the same, is at the end goal, right? Especially with coding, the end goal. We have to make sure the diagnosis is correct, and we also have to make sure the services are correct or the same. But how we go about getting there could be different, right? Because again, our perspective, our teachings, our learning styles are different. And so, so don't allow the fact that you are not at the same level as another individual keep you from reaching your goal. Sometimes you have to add a little spontaneity into your life to create excitement and motivation to accomplish a goal or a task. And then there are things that will require you to write it down, to pace yourself, to step by step it in order to reach the goal. But for the most part, you do it. And sometimes we tend to think that, okay, I have to pray, I have to journal, I have to do all of these things, and I have to do it in the way that I see other people do it in order to reach your goal. And I'm not saying you shouldn't pray. Yes, you should pray. It's just, again, the way that we see other individuals do it and the way that we do it doesn't mean that we're wrong or we are incorrect. It could be, again, that's the way that they approach prayer, their communication with their higher being, with God. Ours, God could be walking with us. Who's to say they only spend time with God in that moment? We actually spend time with God all day, every day, because God is with us. He's within us, right? So we're having a conversation with God. Our conversation doesn't have to look or mimic that of another individual, okay? Because here's the thing. We know what we are in need of. We know what we are grateful for. That other individual don't know what we are in need of. We don't, and of course, we don't know what they are grateful for. So our conversation, our relationship with God is different from the next person. That doesn't mean that we are less religious or we have a less, or I would say lesser relationship with God. It's just that our relationship is different. And if you're praying and if you are reading your Bible and you're doing those things to stay connected to God, then that is your relationship with God, right? You have a deep relationship with God as they have their deep relationship with God. So so I say all that to say, again, let us not compare ourselves to the next person. And just because it is being force fed to us of how other individuals do things, and it may come across as they are correct or they're right by doing that, sometimes we have to pause again and look at how we do things, and the way we do things are correct too, especially if we're getting results, right? Especially if we're getting results. So if you are a quick thinker or spontaneity, who's to say you're not praying right before you make a decision? Who's to say you don't have the resources? Who's to say that your resources can get the job done quicker, right? And instead of the individual, who's to say the other individual is not looking at the way that you do things and want to incorporate your mechanism to accomplish their goals? So that's what I'm saying. Spontaneity. You have to be different. You have to evolve. You have to innovate yourself to accomplish your goals. And as the culture said, you have to mind your business. So again, there are certain things that require spontaneity, and there are certain things that will require discipline in a step-by-step process. And again, your spontaneity is a step-by-step process. And I'm going to speak for myself. I've thought about it. I've prayed about it. I've done the inventory and realized I have the resources available to accomplish a said goal, right? Then I'm going to go forth with it. And I've come to the realization that if it is not perfect, or it doesn't land, or what's the word I'm looking for, or it doesn't conceptualize as I had thought it would, then I know that I can go back and correct. I can fix it. I can improve. I can do better. But the most important thing is to start. 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 Okay? For example, again, I didn't have an intro music. I didn't do the editing. I just picked up my phone and started recording this, right? Whereas any other time when I am doing an intro, I am using my computer. Guess what? I'm still going to monetize. I'm still going to get paid for this episode, right? Because you're still going to listen. You're still going to download. It's still going to post. It's still going to be shared to the world about being spontaneous and having discipline. So next episode, I may have the music, right? I may have advertisements. I may have all those things that requires content to be perfect or what have you. Okay, but that's there. Right now, we're being spontaneous. And so this is a prime example of how you just go ahead and start and allow it to flow. And another reason why I do love being spontaneous, and especially recording from my phone, is because I travel, right? I travel a lot. And so sometimes I may have my laptop with me, and there are times I may not. And so when I decide to record an episode, I have the application on my phone, and I can just hit record and start recording an episode. So yes, so that is, again, you have to use the resources that you have at your fingertips to get started or to continue to progress towards your goal or towards your mark. So again, make a list of the things that it's kind of going back to what I was just saying, like making a list. But what are the things that you can do at this moment? What are the things that you can do today versus waiting to next week or next year or next month to do, because you are allowing procrastination to set in. You are allowing comparison to set in. You are allowing fear to set in. I bet you if you do one spontaneous thing and you will receive motivation, and you will keep going. And you keep going, and it will give you that momentum that is needed to reach your goal. I would say quicker, or you'll be more excited about reaching your goal. So yeah, so just do it. In the words of Nike, just do it. So yeah, so that's all that I have for this week. I hope this episode and my message enlightens you or motivates you to get going. So yeah, so as always, I'm going to end this episode with don't worry, but always be grateful, be humble, and be spontaneous. So until next time, I hope you all have a blessed week. Toodles.